Many years ago, before Columbus discovered America, our country was inhabited only by Indians. Although there are a few written records which tell us something of how the early Indians lived, we have found out a great deal more about them in other ways. How do we know some of them lived in houses with bark or grass roofs? How do we know they had maize, which we call corn, to eat, and that they ground it into meal? How do we know about the ways in which they cooked their food? How do we know what kind of hunting weapons they used? We have found the answers to these and to many other questions about the early American Indians in several different ways. Many of the early explorers in America kept records of their visits with the Indians. But in general, we learn more about these Indians from explorations known as digs. On these digs, many scientific facts are gathered together by specially trained people known as archaeologists. Some archaeologists explore places where the Indians lived and carefully dig up the earth to recover the things these early people left. These objects are called artifacts. This piece of pottery may be one of many pieces that can be used to reconstruct a cooking pot. Fitting the pieces together in this clay pot was something like putting a picture puzzle together. To find out how the Indians' houses were built is an even harder task. To construct a model of one of their houses takes much study. The archaeologist must use all the facts he can gather from many different sources. Although a modern house is more difficult to build than the kind in which the Indians lived, the construction of some Indian houses is very much the same. The house has studding and rafters, walls to keep out the cold and rain, and a roof to protect the inhabitants from the weather. On a dig, archaeologists often find discoveries and materials which tell them how the Indian built his house. When they have dug into the earth a foot or two, they smooth the floor of their excavation very carefully. Then they sprinkle the ground with water to bring out the differences in color. These faint differences in color indicate that the earth has been disturbed or dug up by men. Here is a trench that held the posts in the wall. These posts were like the studding in a modern house. Since the post holes are in a line and fairly close together, the archaeologist believes that they were the basic structure of the house wall. All of the post holes and many of the artifacts found within the house area are carefully measured and plotted. In this way, the location of each object can be noted and correctly placed. When these drawings, field notes, and artifacts from a certain house area are complete, the archaeologist draws a final map of the area. From this information, he can begin to reconstruct the dwelling. he knows that the walls were first constructed of wood posts. From sections of walls found on the site, he knows that the walls were made of clay mixed with grass or straw. The reconstructed model has walls of clay too. In early times, just as today, wasps built their nests under the roof of the house. From the impressions of grass found on them, the archaeologist concludes that the roofs of the houses were grass thatched. These many small bits of evidence help a trained person construct models, which show us how early American Indians made their several types of houses. Of course, the many other artifacts found in excavations tell us more about how the Indians lived. When an artifact is found, it is uncovered very carefully. After being cleaned, numbered, and cataloged, it's placed with other artifacts like it. Here are some of the weapons the Indians used in hunting deer, rabbits, and the other animals and birds they used for food. Spearheads and arrowheads made of flint or other hard materials are found in great quantities. Numerous bone fish hooks found at the village site tell the archaeologist that the Indians fished for food. They made chisels, celts, axes, and hammers from hard rocks. The Indian worked many long hours to make these tools, slowly chipping, pecking, and grinding the rocks until they had the proper shape. Little Indian girls played with clay dolls, and perhaps they made these toy dishes in imitation of the dishes their parents made and used. Even the babies may have had rattles like these. Then, even as now, people use jewelry of various kinds: bead necklaces, earrings, and shell ornaments. Charred remains of corn cobs and other foods show the archaeologist that the early Indians grew certain grains and vegetables for food. On digs in various parts of North and South America, archaeologists continue to discover new facts about the early American Indians. As these scientists share their discoveries with us, we can learn much about the people who lived many years ago. We, too, get a glimpse of the past.
Ay,